Cael is joining with us today, and he is a magician of archaic magic, working in the realms of Norse paganism and druidry. Druidry. Oh my gosh, can you say it for me, Cael?
You got it right the first time, Druidry.
Okay. Yes. Also a runes reader and a channeler of spirits, including ascended masters, deities, and mythological creatures, which I'm excited to hear more about as well, and a guardian of the wolves. And so you'll have to tell us more about all of the wonderful things that you do. Today we're going to be focusing specifically on runes and channeling. And I know runes is not something that is known by all. So I'm super excited for you to tell us a little bit more about the history of runes and how you got into it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot. There's so much. I have 8 pages of notes because this is a very
we love being prepared.
we gotta be prepared. So here's the lowdown on runes. So I guess we'll just dive right into it. So the interesting thing about runes is the runologists today, they continue to argue over the many details concerning the historical origins of runic writing. So historically, the runes are presumed to have been derived from one of the old Italic alphabets used amongst Mediterranean people of the 1st century CE, and they resided south of Germanic tribes. So, and it's believed simultaneously that the earlier Germanic sacred symbols, akin to the ones preserved in Northern European rock carvings, were influential in developing the runic script itself. So it gets a little bit crazy because the runes, if you're familiar with runes, we'll go into it too, there's different types, and then there's there's different runes that branch off of what we know as Elder Futhark, Younger Futhark, Anglo-Saxon runes, and then even Ogham runes. So, but we'll get to that, I promise. So the earliest possible runic inscriptions were known. So they're known and found on the Meldorf brooch, and that was hailed from the north of modern day Germany around 50 CE. The inscription is highly ambiguous. We still really haven't discerned it in its full entirety, but scholars are still divided over whether the letters are runic or Roman. And then, so the earliest identification runic inscriptions that we know with absolute are from Vimus Combe in Vimus, Denmark. And then the Orvstavu spearhead from southern Norway, both date about 160 BC, 160 CE. So, and then when we talk about runes, the oldest known carving of the entire Futhark alphabet is and the pronunciation in Swedish is a little different. So if you see it, most people pronounce it Kalver. It's Shilver. So the K in Swedish is sh and not K. So it's Shilver. So that's a Shilver stone from Gotland, Sweden, which dates to roughly 400 CE. So that's the history of it. So we're going to dive into the mythological take on the runes. Let me just scroll down. So runes, if you're familiar with runes in Norse mythology, you may be familiar with that the runes have always been tied to Odin. So the mysterious art of rune staves or carved wooden sticks have been around for centuries and is believed to have originated from the symbols etched under rocks in the Bronze and Iron Age of Scandinavia. So Tacitus, the Roman politician and historian, wrote a book called Germania, and it specifically talks about the Germanic people's use of these carved staves for divination. It's a testament to the power and the mystery of these symbols. And even after all of these years, the ancient art of rune staves still captivate and mystify us. And also it goes into, with Tacitus's book, it accounted that Odin was long established as the dominant figure in the pantheons of many Germanic tribes by the 1st century. And it also really reinforces that it was Odin himself that discovered the runes by his own sacrifice, which is recorded in the Hafmal, which is, if you're not familiar with the Hafmal, that's a collection of Old Norse poems. So we'll go into this a little bit further. So the inscription from the Hafmal that reiterates Odin and him retrieving the runes says, "I know that I hung on the wind-blasted tree, all of the 9 nights pierced by my spear, and given to Odin, myself sacrificed to myself on that pole, of which no one knew where its roots run. No aid I received, not even a single sit for the horn. Peering down, I took upon the runes. Screaming, I grasped them. Then I fell back from there. So the tree that we're talking about is Yggdrasil. That's the world tree at the center of the Germanic cosmos, whose branches and roots hold the 9 realms, or what we know the 9 worlds. I like saying 9 realms. Directly below that of Yggdrasil is what we know as the Well of Wyrd. The Well of Wyrd is it's a location where the Norns, or the fate weavers, measure and weave the fates of every living thing in the 9 worlds, 9 realms. And it's also a source of incredible wisdom. So it's interesting how we have Odin, who sacrificed himself on a tree, to actually, it's believed, reaching down into the Well of Wyrd to retrieve the runes. And it also goes into understanding that this was a gift. That sacrifice is what created and ushered in the runes to be retrieved, this wisdom to be retrieved. So the runes themselves have this aspect of divine wisdom, is really what it is. The sacrifice of creating divine wisdom that was then given into mankind. And we'll go into that as well. I told you there's a lot. So
I'm learning all the new things. I'm very excited.
Right? It's just so, it's so fascinating. So we'll go into, so we talked about the Havmal. We're going to talk about the Volupsa, which is another creation of, or like amalgamation of Old Norse poems. Voluspa means insight of the seeress. So the inscript says, there stands an ash called Yggdrasil, a mighty tree showered in white hail. From there comes the dew that falls in the valley. It stands evergreen above Wyrd wale. From there come maidens very wise, 3 from the lake that stand beneath the pole. Scold the 3, they carve into the tree, their lives and fates of children. So these 3 maidens are the Norns. So again, those are what we call the fate weavers. And their carvings really consist, so what they're talking about, those carvings are the runes. Now it's believed that runes initially were carved from the yew tree. So this is creating the real understanding between the Well of Wyrd, the runes, and magic itself. So, and then also really throwing in that, again, the runes as a gift that Odin sought, retrieving them, as well as the understanding of the magical principle that the runes have in magic. Then it was, so presumably with all this, after Odin discovered the runes by, again, sacrificing himself and fasting for 9 days while staring into the waters of the Well of Wyrd, it was he who imparted the runes to the first human rune masters. But here's the thing. We don't have a lot of the context of this. So the sacrifice was likely symbolic. I was trying to think of the word. I'm like, brain. So the sacrifice was symbolic in initiating the ceremony, which whoever the first candidate was would be learning the lore of the runes. But there's still, unfortunately, in any inscriptions that we have, there's not a lot of concrete evidence that would support this knowledge or the further understanding of this aspect of knowledge of who that was, having survived in our time. So where am I going with this? The runes were and still are extremely powerful. The pronunciation, the spoken act are recognized to have a tremendous influence over all concerns of life. So words are spells, right? So yeah, so words are spells. And there was a Scandinavian scholar named Katharina Raudver that noted the pronouncement of words was recognized to have a tremendous influence over the concerns of life. The impact of a sentence uttered aloud could not be questioned and could never be taken back, as if it had become somehow physical. Words create reality, not the other way around. So in traditional Germanic society, to vocalize a thought is to make the thought part of the fabric of reality, altering reality accordingly. So why is this important? Because we have a saying, not just in Norse, but in all calibers, all modalities, that we understand that the words that we craft are very potent and powerful. They hold intention. So it goes a little deeper, because when the Voluspa is talking about the runes and the Norns establishing the fate of all beings, it really gives the ability to alter the course's fate, is one of the big foundational points of Germanic magic. It comes as no surprise that the runes are an extremely potent means of redirecting fate. Now, also, it's inherently meaningful symbols, which are then created in a way. So when you pull runes, just like, I guess you could say, just like tarot, you are really understanding.
I was gonna ask if they're like kind of like oracle cards, but a different.
Kind of. So, and that's a very common question.
I know different, but
yeah. No. It's a valid question, and the reason is, so we all have our unique ways of reading tarot, oracle cards, or having our own method to the madness of what we craft and create. That's what makes this work in magic so fascinating. We all have our own way of exuding and working in tandem with source or spirit and our guides and whatever we utilize to be that conduit and catalyst for our work. So the way that I view runes, and this is strictly my own, you can pull different spreads, you can do a past, present, future, or you can ask a question. I like to view the runes as telling a story. They're painting a picture, a narrative of someone's life, especially if there's a question, and going through the motions of giving hints. And then, of course, you're using spirit or your guides or however you choose to fill in the blanks and using your intuition to really broaden the breadth of the question, or really diving deep however you're led. So it's a perfectly ripe question to ask, because there's always been a lot of curiosity with that. Where was I going with that? So word weaving, you may be familiar with. If you're not, it's okay. So we have a saying about word weaving where, again, it ties perfectly in with your words or spells. You weave your fate, and your fate is what lives within you. Your fate is part of you. And we're using those words, and however you speak, it's not just word, doesn't matter, spoken words, if it's thoughts, those manifest into actions. Your words create those actions, and you create your fate. That's a big pinnacle with all of this, is realizing that. So if you've ever had the chance to work with runes, are familiar with them, they're symbols. So it is based off an alphabet, and unlocking their secrets really grant access to that untapped power and wisdom of very old archaic magic as an old modality. And that's also, here's the truth on this too, and it's still argued today, whether or not runes were used in the full context as we portray them today. Now, my perspective is we have lost so much history in the course of generations and centuries that intentionally we don't know. And I think that as we are coming into, and individually, as we are coming back into the essence of our magic, and we are starting to understand and really pursue, especially in rune work, I feel that we are slowly unearthing and breathing life back into the magic of runes that perhaps have been distorted or intentionally marred, and we're understanding them at a deeper level that perhaps now we're ready to relearn.
I think that's beautiful. Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's many different types of runes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So are all the runes a different set of alphabetical letters, if you will?
Yes, and I was actually going to get onto that right now.
Oh, perfect. So, okay. So my question would be, can you create, since you're saying that they create a tale and a story of one's life, can you take those letters and form different words and different symbols and different analogies when you put different types of runes together? Does that make sense, of like creating, like we would with our alphabet in English, for example, we put letters together to form different words, or does it work differently?
No, you have the correct premise. So what you would do is, if you're taking different runes, you'd be creating your own bind rune. And you can, with those runes and the letters, you can create words out of them to make very intricate bind runes or sigus. So it really depends on how you'd like to create and what the intention is and how to use those words. So you're right on the mark with that. And here's kind of the fascinating thing too with that. So the oldest type of runes that we have is called the Elder Futhark. That's what I use. It's 24 runes. And then we had from Elder Futhark was the Younger Futhark at 16 runes. These are the two prevalent that were used by the Old Norse people in Northern Europe. And both are consisting of a series of symbols that represent one thing, and then it can branch off into what that one thing represents, especially what we know as the eights. And we'll go into that too, because that's a whole other level. But so the Elder Futhark is the oldest of the two. The Elder Futhark is the oldest of the two. And that was used primarily during the early medieval period from about the 2nd to 8th century AD. Younger Futhark is later, and that was from around the 8th to the 12th century AD. Then it goes into other runes. So you have Anglo-Saxon in England was another system from the 5th to 11th century. That's 33 letters, and that primarily served to write Old English. Then you have the Gothic runes, which more East Germanic people, which bear a lot of similarities to Elder Futhark. But it's believed that Gothic runes are from the Greek alphabet, and those are 27 letters. And they fell away after about 6th century. And that's where Gothic runes then adopted more of the Latin. They kind of transitioned into or were adopted as the Latin alphabet. How do let me reword that. The Gothic runes fell out of use after 6th century. And that's where it was then later the Latin alphabet was adopted instead of Gothic runes. So then we go into Ogham runes, which are strictly lines. I have not spent a lot of time understanding Ogham runes. That is on my list of things to do. But it just really highlights that throughout these different stints of time between Elder Futhark, Younger Futhark, and Anglo-Saxon runes, that there was still considerable overlap in the usage of these runes. And that overlap depended on the areas that were prevalent, or, it was prevalent. It wasn't just small segmented areas. It was prevalent overlap. I know this is a lot.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was taking a pause because a little lag there. Okay, so no, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's expanding my knowledge. I know it will be for a lot of people too. I didn't realize how integrated runes are into so many different cultural and historical time periods. And so my question would be, do you think runes played a integral part in us forming languaging as a whole? Because it sounds like that it goes so incredibly far back into not only Earth history, but cosmic history as well, or interdimensional history.
Yes, I do. And I love that you bring that up, because when we look at, this is going to go like taking us far into the cosmos of possibility here. But isn't it interesting that our societies, especially more primitive, archaic, specifically use symbols? And when you look at the distinction of symbols that we receive from crop circles, or from individuals channeling them or receiving them in lucid dreaming or whatever happenstance, how interesting that symbols have always been so prevalent in our language of describing or communicating messages. So I would say there's an absolute correlation. That has been so prevalent in how we as humans in this human experience have learned to communicate. Now it's just memes though. So we just primarily use memes for communicating, but
the memes are a form of their own ruins. Yeah.
Accurate.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So we'll dive in a little bit more, because we'll get to
can I ask
the runes. Yeah.
Can I ask 2 more questions, if you don't mind, before we move forward?
I don't mind. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I work in the realms of light language that have a lot of symbols. I don't utilize the symbols as much, but I have a lot of light language friends who utilize them. And there seems to be, or my perception of it is that there might be some correlations between the two of them, even though they're very separate, right? But it seems like there might be some overlap. Like if you looked at them on a Venn diagram. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that you know, it really touches back on the way that we communicate, especially when it comes to light language. It really is, you know, it's understanding as well as understanding. And I think that when we are working with symbols as a whole, regardless of what that is, a lot of it is interpretation. A lot of it is trusting our instinct. And I think that there are still ways in working with the spiritual realm, the realm unseen, that we receive information in the most unlikely of ways. And I truly think that the primary way that we receive that, especially through our third eye, is going to be through symbols.
Agreed. I think that's a way to kind of transcend the limited language that we have with our words, where it is more about feelings and emotions and those intuitive insights that are not necessarily something that can be perceived with your human physical senses always.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that as we really begin to understand the breadth of symbols and our own understanding, as well as finding and looking for the correlation, you know, we have promptings in a myriad of different ways that help us put the pieces together or to understand, especially when we're presented with a symbol or with some sort of imagery that perhaps eludes us at that time. And there's a phenomena where we are divinely led and inspired of finding a particular path because of one single symbol. And I think that the runes and light language and different magical staves and different sigils and different bind rooms all play into a part. And even then, there's also a power in creating your own. And that could be its own language in of itself. And the way that we communicate and the way that we weave words together, the way that we allow ourselves to express, but also to breach a deeper understanding through symbols, is what fosters that powerful essence of magic that perhaps we had not been attuned to prior.
I think that's amazing. In saying that, I know it's not the same as runes, but when I started, or when I was getting deeper into my spiritual awakening journey, and I heard the word Akashic records, I could physically and spiritually feel something unlock within me. And then when I heard that it's the book of life, which that's one interpretation of the Akashic records, okay, but that symbol of the book of life completely unlocked all of those facets of me of, oh, I've been doing this in many different incarnations. Now it's time to pull it through this one as well. So I agree in the power of symbolism can really unlock these different facets of self very quickly when you see them or when you hear them. I have one more question before we jump back in there is, and maybe you know the answer, or maybe not, but I know that you work with Odin, and I would wonder why he decided to go on kind of this symbolic sacrificial journey to retrieve the ruins in the first place, and then to impart them into human history, into the earth plane. And that was just like a question that's been ruminating since you first started of, okay, Odin, why did we go into this in the first place?
Let me get that answer for you. I may need you to repeat it. So give me a second.
Okay. And if not, it's okay too. I'm just curious.
I know I can get it because he's like, I heard my name. I'm like, okay, buddy, wait. Please wait.
Okay.
You know as well as I do that magic throughout the times have always been restricted, or there are forces who've never wanted magic to exist in its entirety. And your question pertaining to why the sacrifice was necessary was furthering the understanding and unlocking the capabilities that magic have, and that magic was required in its own essence during that time. The reason for the sacrifice was to bring about a more powerful way of connecting to spirits, to the earth, to the unseen. Without that sacrifice, there perhaps would not be the breadth of information that is serving humanity to a greater degree at this time. there is always a sacrifice that is required for extracting and uncovering the deepest of understandings. And this is no different. This was the catalyst that now is beginning to come back, as Wolf has described. This catalyst in understanding the great propensity, as well as the notion that of what magic is and what it is to do in this realm, stems from a new reawakening of the essence that comes to the fullness of magic returning to its rightful and present state, if that makes sense.
It does, and I want to say thank you for coming through to speak with us. And just so you know, I was not laughing at you. I was laughing at the sentence that you gave me of "you know as well as I do," because I was like, yes, I do. But I had to ask anyway because I wanted to ask for everybody. So yes.
There is no offense merited. It's merely coincidental,
okay, good.
As your knowledge extends far greater than perhaps you realize. All right, I'm stepping back in because I think we lost Sage. That's the fun thing of channeling and being able to have your eyes open. So I think Sage, not sure where she went. I'm just going to bide my time.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I could hear everything that you were saying. I was trying to fix my camera and then I just popped.
You're
off
good.
But I was here. Okay.
That's the fun of that's the fun of, I can step back in real quick when I need to, because I'm like, wait, let me just see what's going on. But I hope that answered your question.
It did. Okay, give me 1 second so I can fix whatever's going on with this camera. I apologize. One moment. Let's see.
No, you're good. I'm just, I saw that you logged out and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, disappeared again. Oh, just a little bit of technical difficulties. We'll be back. Just waiting for Sage.
Okay, my deepest apologies.
You're good.
Can you see me okay?
I can see you.
Okay, my apologies. Okay, we are back. Okay. Okay, I want to thank you and Odin for coming through to give us that message. And what do you think that, in your own interpretation, that he means by a sacrifice being needed? Do you think that is like going into the depths of the shadows of maybe, not having magic perceived and having to go in through the shadow realms in order to retrieve said magic for people to have a deeper understanding and understanding? Because it seems like a path that we all kind of have to go on is to go through those shadow realms to find our own magic.
I think it's two parts. I think one, the interpretation also is, in life, there's always a sacrifice merited to retrieve knowledge in any capacity, and that's not limited to any sort of scope, or it's diverse across all spectrums. To be able to pursue knowledge, there has to be a sacrifice, time, money, anything of that degree. You always have to be able to receive. You have to sacrifice. You have to give up something. So I think that interpretation number one is, to have a deeper understanding, there has to be a sacrifice to be able to retrieve, whether it's for the individual or for the collective, we'll say. Two, when it comes to, so I talked about the hero's journey of Joseph, that Joseph Campbell penned. And this really goes into the realization of, I don't want to say traversing through shadows. I think as it is, it's self-discovery, and it's a discovery of our own pursuit and what we are seeking. And sometimes that can put us into a strange happenstance where we are coming to terms with the facets of ourselves that have been ignored or repressed, or we are battling our own will. We're battling our own ego. We're going into a state of surrender and allowing ourselves to integrate fully and to transform into who we are as we go through this journey or as we are seeking to retrieve something. So I really think it's interpreted in two ways, but to be able to bring something into fruition to the fullness. I mean, look at every single hero's story or any sort of novel or any sort of cinematic. There's always a sacrifice that's required to retrieve the ultimate boon or like the reward, so to speak. So I think in this, it falls perfectly in line with Odin's sacrifice on Yggdrasil to retrieve this great knowledge from the well.
Yeah, I think that is a beautiful interpretation on both ends of the spectrum. I think that's great. Can you tell us a little bit more how you got into ruins before we kind of jump back into the history?
Quite honestly, by accident.
Okay.
In the fullness
like
of transparency. Yeah. I mean, we've all seen shows like Vikings and anything like that have been so popular the last 5 to 10 years. You know, having worked in the entertainment industry, I was familiar with the shows that were being produced or being casted or that were filming. I had good friends that worked on a lot of those shows. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Not really understanding the breadth of stuff. And as I really got curious, like I've always been curious about family genealogy, and my dad is like a master of it. Like his parents, his grandparents, his great-great-grandparents and such, like we have a very detailed family genealogy. And a lot of his lineage, his primary lineage comes from Sweden, Norway, Scandinavia, and all of that. So it was interesting talking with him. He was out here for about a week and just talking about like, there's a lot of correlations with our family history. Even more humorously, it was like having them be stowaways from Sweden, Norway into the United States. That really, I feel like has kind of led me to tapping back into the roots on my dad's side and understanding the old magic or the old way, the traditional ways of Norse, Scandinavia, anything in between of that Germanic realm. So that kind of led me to when I lived in California, there was a small mom and pop shop that was metaphysics. Didn't really understand. I just wanted to go there for like Palo Santo and ethically harvested white sage, but they had this bag of runes. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So they're bloodstone runes or dragon blood runes. And I was like, why not? And so I bought them, started messing around with them for 2 years. Didn't really, was just kind of learning, kind of put them away, had a little bit of hiatus from anything spirituality for about 2 years. And then last year, last year, probably around April, May, I think June or July, had a reading with a psychic medium from the UK. And they asked, do you work runes? I'm like, yes. Their response was, you need to start picking back up on your runes. And I'm like, no one knows that I work runes, not even like my friends. So I just kind of got pulled back into it with taking that relayed information as gospel and started really diving back into the aspects of runes and working very intimately with them. I mean, I have one oracle deck, just that's all, because I'll actually pull it up. It's really cool because it's based on the hero's journey. It's called the Endless Oracle. But other than that, I've strictly worked runes, and that's how I choose to work. I won't touch tarot cards. Nothing wrong with them. They're just not my jam. But I just feel very in tune with the runes and understanding them at a greater breadth than I do anything else.
Do you think that you probably have different incarnations that you have utilized and work with the runes, or do you think that has a lot to do with your ancestral lineages of your genealogy here on this earth incarnation, or do you think it's a mixture of both, or do you think it was just divine synchronization that this is your part of your path?
I think it's both. My session with Molly relayed that I have multiple concurrent lives right now through my star chakra. She was like, "Oh, it's not," because I know I have one, but she's like, "Nah, you have multiple." And I'm like, "Oh, that explains a lot." Okay, so I think it's ancestral, and then it goes into ancestral, and that fodders into concurrent lives right now. And I never had the bravery to break out of the upbringing that I had and allowing myself to challenge my perspective of organized religion. It wasn't my jam. I'm not knocking it. It just wasn't for me. I think that really opened my senses up to different possibilities and seeing what actually is out there and understanding the intricacies and the minute details, as well as the spiritual, which when you are in a organized religious setting, you don't have that opportunity. And that kind of, when I was willing to look past my upbringing, because I've always been intuitive, I had to actually think about this more recently. I'm like, oh, I have seen what people call astral spiders when I was younger, and I was terrified of going to bed, like in my own room. I have always seen orbs. I have always heard voices. I just thought it was voices in my head. I have had full conversations with creatures and things that I could see as a kid. Like recently I had to review going into my past and be like, oh no, this all makes sense. So I think it's just a culmination of being thrown back into the trajectory of tapping back into something that I've worked with before that is, I don't want to call it inherent, but it's a familiarity. And there's not a lot of, I want to see more rune readers. It's a wonderful, wonderful modality. And it really, to me, that archaic nature of that very primitive, and I use primitive in a compassionate way, like primitive meaning it's old archaic magic. It's a very old modality that works not just with you and what you bring to the table, but working with nature. I use it like every time I do a session, I literally take my runes out to my 2 high content wolf dog boys, and I just present it to them, like, all right, do your thing, rub all over them, give some love to them, because I want that energy. So it's just I can't speak highly enough about the runes because they have a deep-seated connection to here in this earth realm. And I think, like we touched on before or earlier, I think that there's a broader connection that perhaps we're still reacquainting ourselves. We're being reintroduced to the fullness of the runes.
Oh, are you still there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. There was something going. Anytime we're doing high vibrational, high frequency, it's amazing. I wanted to ask you. Oh, okay. I wanted to ask you, with the ruins, do you think that the galactic energy? Oh, can you hear me? No.
Yeah, I can hear you. Like you said, high energy and high vibrations always throws anything technical for a spin.
Every time. So do you think that they carry a lot of earth energy, galactic energy, ethereal energy, elemental energy, or is it all of the above? What has been your experience in working with the ruins?
I'm so new with anything with galactic. I would say me personally would be elemental, would be archaic magic, the very essence of what this realm used to be. But now that we had this conversation, I'm really curious now about galactic ties and that energy too, because there's no such thing as coincidences. And I think that especially with symbology, there's deeper, more intuitive connections that I have not really looked into. So now I have a whole new rabbit hole that I'm going to have to go down.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, obviously there are not obviously, but it would be my thought pattern that if we have ruins here, either on this plane, from ancient Earth, from Middle Earth, wherever that might be, that there's probably other planetary systems out in the galaxies that have their own maybe set of ruins and symbolism like that, that maybe you can learn how to tap into and channel, and maybe you can even tap into some of your different timelines that maybe have some accessy points to those different like stargates or planetary systems, and can pull that info down for you.
Yeah, I mean, this tea is probably going to help now that we're really kind of setting that intention. It will be interesting to see what manifests from that. But I agree. I think
do you want to share with everybody that do you want to share? Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're good.
Oh, good. I was just going to ask if you wanted to share what kind of tea you're drinking with everybody, because I think it's so fascinating what you're utilizing it for.
So I'm working on a craft blend. So this is a yin hao, which is like a silver tip jasmine loose leaf, and it has a Mexican dream herb, mugwort, Egyptian blue lotus. Now my brain's super hazy. And a few other goodies, okay, especially like dried mango and different fruit essence. But I've always enjoyed herbology. I'm getting more into it. Like I used to be like, oh, that's neat, one day I'll do it. And now I'm like, I actually need to do it. So I am in the process of making specific teas and tea blends for lucid dreaming, for astral projection, as well as more of a modern ceremonial tea to really set intentions and to do that deep dive in spiritual work when we're looking to safely connect deeper into the realizations of, connecting with our guides, or realm jumping, or, multi-dimensional work, or any sort.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think that it's a great way to connect to these different energies is through the power of plants.
Yes.
As they all have their own consciousness, and they can all help us heal different facets of ourselves, not only physically, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and help us connect to these different, not only earth energies, but cosmic energies as well.
Yeah. I've primarily worked with the earth realm and the different realms connected with earth. The galactic, I'll be quite transparent. I've always been like, I don't know, it sounds weird, but now I'm like, I'm just at this point where I'm like, I guess I should really kind of do more, because I haven't, so this is kind of going to open up a very positive Pandora's box with seeing what happens now, with kind of having this realization of expanding my comfort zone, since I really have been working with the unseen myriad of mythical beasts, and with different deities and pantheons, ascended masters, and all that. Yeah. So it's going to be.
I was going to say you have a wide breadth of knowledge. Like it wouldn't surprise me for you to do a hop, skip, and a jump over there to galactic energies, because you're almost there anyway. Right. My question would be is if people want to connect with the ruins or learn about the ruins, what is the best way for them to do that? I know, especially because it is an honored system. So what would be not necessarily like a procedure, but what would be a way in for people to start working in those realms?
Just get yourself a get yourself runes that you feel comfortable with and start learning. You know, the thing that I always try and impart is there's no gatekeeping. This is 2024. We don't need gatekeeping in any capacity with any modality or anything. So literally, if you'll feel prompted to work with the runes, go get yourself runes, maybe support independent artists on Etsy and find runes that you feel resonate with you. There are great books out there. There's great blogs out there. Just get to know what each rune stands for and be familiar with the terminology, the wording, the breadth of their meaning and what they represent in its entirety, and just start going for it. Because just like how in any sort of spiritual path, you don't need a mentor. You don't need someone, you don't have to wait for someone to bestow your runes upon you. That's complete bullshit. This is where, if you feel the prompting, go get yourself some runes and start working and learning with them. Understand the energy, understand how you choose to read them and how they speak to you, because you're not going to know until you start working with them. And that's the most important facet that I can ever impart, is don't be afraid of them. Just start working with them. And you'll find out if you feel the calling, then herald the call. If you start working with them and you feel that they're not for you, then that's okay too. At least you understand and know, and that can further define your path onto what resonates or what you feel implored to work in certain ways with. You know, the great thing about how we all work is through experimentation and kind of pushing ourselves past our comfort zone to really understand the full capacity of how we choose to work with energies in whatever way.
I think that is amazing advice. And I was actually making a video earlier about signs and synchronicities, and that a lot of times there is a collective understanding of certain signs and synchronicities. Like take angel numbers, for example. We can all go on Google and look up what is 111 and 555 and 888, but it's whatever you want your interpretation to be. Same thing with connecting to animal spirits or connecting to ascended masters. Yes, there's a basis consensus, but it can be anything that you want it to be. Same thing with tarot or oracle cards or the Akashic records or anything, right? It's however it's going to best serve you in your life and with your personal and spiritual developments.
Yeah, it's an individual practice, and no one channels the same. No one works tarot cards the same. No one works pendulums or dowsing rods the same. There's like guidelines, but it really comes down to how you choose and what is the symbols or the how it conveys to you, yes, no, maybe, or how you are fed information as you work with different modalities. You know, the constant issue is people or folks being belittled or making them feel as if that they have to earn a certain right or privilege to get to a point where they can start working any modality, and that's not okay. If you feel called to do something, do it. You don't need anyone's permission.
Yes, no gatekeeping. Yeah. And all of these things are trying to help us get back to unity consciousness and love. And there's no barriers to unity consciousness and love. That anything else that tells you otherwise is a false illusion. Right. My question would be, if somebody's just now starting out in the ruins, what would be some questions that maybe they could ask the ruins, maybe about themselves or about reality, or what are some ways that you have worked with them? Because if somebody's brand new to channeling, sometimes I'm not sure what questions to ask them or ask of self. Do you have any that, come to mind?
I think it's whatever they feel implored to do. You can even just do a single rune pull to look for an answer. Now, here's the thing with runes too. There are some people who believe that you can, much like tarot, you can pull a rune in reverse and that will give a different meaning as if it's upright. There's also the aspect to where Elder Futhark has 24 runes. There's also an extra, which is Odin's rune, which is almost like a let's see what happens, chance, variability. Some use Odin's rune within their rune work and some choose to not. I use Odin's rune work because it really is this can happen. There's a variable. I almost call it like a vibe check. I'll pull another one just to look at if I'm doing a single rune pull, doesn't matter if it's a 1, a 3, a 5, or a 9. If Odin's rune comes up, I always pull another one to act as the counteract, or this could happen. This is a realm of possibility. So there's many questions that you can ask. I personally can't say what you shouldn't. I think it really comes down to understanding how, the individual question that the people have is up to them. So like for me, when I started, I was asking a lot of questions about my guides, about my path, and the runes were very, very stoic. And like simultaneously, when I was trying to really deduce that I was understanding or feeling as if I got the correct information, I actually would double check myself with my pendulum to be like, okay, am I understanding this correctly? So, I mean, I could have theoretically pulled another rune, but I was very comfortable with my pendulum. So I'd use my pendulum as almost like a validation at that point when I was first getting started, just to like give myself a confirmation. So however you choose to do that, or whatever questions, I think you will inherently know and feel whatever pops in your head, whatever is in that heart space, you'll be prompted and you'll know what to ask, or there's no limit on what you can ask, really.
I absolutely love that idea of utilizing different modalities and tools to counter check like your information that's coming through. Like, oh, well, if you're already kind of working with tarot or oracle cards, like, of course you can kind of use those with your runes or any other type of modalities. I hadn't really thought of that before. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront here.
Yeah, especially if folks haven't established their connection with their guides yet, or they're still kind of wanting to make sure that they're doing it right. Like there's never a shame in looking for validation or confirmation when we're trying something new. But that was super helpful for me in working with my pendulum and just being like, okay, am I interpreting this correctly? And just like having that confirmation, whether it was yes, no, or if it was telling me I don't fucking know. So it's just nice to have that as a fail safe, because I think sometimes we need that, especially if we are working in a modality that's unfamiliar to us, that a lot of our friends or colleagues don't work on, or we're super shy. Use another modality that you're super comfortable with, that you feel aligned and connected with, and just do your own check too, just to make sure that, and then that can lead into a whole different pathway opening of, as you get more familiar and connected and learn who else is working in the same modality, not just runes, then you can have someone spot check you too, or be like, hey, like, can I do a reading? Can you let me know if this resonates and stuff? So I think there's more intuitive ways that perhaps we have so many different options to really add into our work, as well as to make sure that we're understanding or that we're comfortable. Because that's number one, like getting yourself comfortable and familiar. There are ways to really set that in stone to build up your confidence.
I think that's beautiful. And I have you found in your experience, because the Akashic records are, I would say, would be my main modality, if you could even call something a main modality. But when I first got into it, it felt like nobody kind of knew what that was, but it was really just the people who were around me in my experience, right? But the deeper that I got into it, then I started finding more and more and more people, because I was pulling that into my reality. And it just made me feel a lot more comfortable and confident, and just like I was around my people, right? Have you found that with the ruins? Have you found a lot of other people who are also wanting to get into it, or who love it? Or is it still kind of like obscure in spirituality?
No. and that's the crazy thing. I wish I could say that I've had that experience like you articulate with the Akashic records, or what we know in Norse is mimir as well. We use that for scrying, just like you use the Akashic records. I have not. Okay. So I have not, and I probably need to do better about that. But it's, I haven't, and I welcome the opportunity. And like I said, I hope there are more rune readers that really go into this and like want to understand and go into this whole magical breath that the runes carry. I haven't found others, but I'm not everywhere on the internet. So, and I'm sure that I know that there are other rune readers out there. In Facebook, I haven't been acquainted with other individuals, but I'm hoping that dynamic will change and people will be inspired to really look into working with runes.
I actually have a friend who is the one that introduced me. Oh, my camera. Hold on. 1 second. Oh, the heck? Hold on. One moment. I'm going to try and plug my webcam back in here. I have a friend who, we'll just roll with it. I have a friend who actually introduced me to ruins, not to go like super in depth about it, but she's very interested in that modality. So I may have to connect y'all to one another. So you do have somebody who's also super interested. But maybe what came to mind was, oh, well, maybe Cael is the Odin of our current experience, and that he is going to impart that. And he is going to be the leader of the ruins movement.
Oh no!
In establishing.
I can hardly get myself to eat breakfast or remember where my keys are. I do not need any sort of leadership role in this room. Okay. But I will say this: if people feel inspired, I'm always like, I'm down the road. I'm hoping to offer like a class because I want people to understand the runes. I want people to feel connected to them. I want them to use them. So I think I've already kind of tabled the decision a little bit in drafting stuff to really teach a class on runes. But it's funny too. It's like connecting with Odin has been very interesting. It's been a very intense experience, but I hesitate because like I said, I don't want to be anyone's leader. I'm just here playing with runes and stuff. But it's like, if there's information that I can glean, or if there's new insights that somehow I can retrieve for everyone, then that's badass. It's like, I feel like in spiritual communities, we always have individuals that they want that leadership role. They want that opportunity to connect, to be seen, validated, and heard, which is great. But it's like, for me, I'm like, I just want people to see how amazingly wonderful and magical this realm is. And I want them to truly embrace it and see past the way that society has painted everything in such a dogmatic criticism to people. So I want people to open up their senses, recognize the inherent magic that's still in this realm. It's very much alive, not at the capacity it used to be, but embrace their essence of being a magical being. It's in our bones. I want people to, I want that for people. It's like, I don't want to be anyone's voice. We all have our voices. I don't want to stifle that, but I want people to really embrace just the wonderment that we have in this realm, and to really tap into that and lean into that and feel that and cultivate that. That's what I want.
I love that. Kaylee in the comments here said, I would love a ruins class. It's my heritage too. I'm super new to magic. So see, you already have some interested in your class. We need to decide.
It'll happen. I've been bugged. I have been asked. I'll do this. I've been prompted to do many classes, and I'm just like, I'll get to it later. And now all of a sudden it's just like, no, we told you to do a class. You need to listen. I'm like, okay. I hear you loud and clear, and I will get started on that. But yeah, I just want people to embrace their magic. I literally, like, what would give me joy is for everyone to understand they are all cosmic badasses. They have inherent magic within them, and let's help people reach that potential and, like, get rid of their self-limiting beliefs or their self-doubt and really come into this essence of what makes us so unique in this human experience,
I love that. And I will say that I resonate with that because my higher self and guides kept on saying, we want you to teach people how to access the Akashic records. And I say, how am I supposed to do that when that's such a personalized experience? There's no X, Y, and Z steps to do it, right? And they're like, no, you just need to give a guideline and just to kind of explain what it is and the different tools and resources and ways in your own personal experience, and people will hear what they need to hear, right? But I totally get that because I was like, how am I supposed to do that? But just like you know, we figure it out. We figure out how to filter it down, way for people to integrate and implement it into their lives. So yeah.
It's so fun. Like, it's, you know,
do you have anything else that you
you're good. The energy is so crazy that even my internet can't keep up. So
same. That's what I'm saying. Like it's we're in the higher ethereal realms, and so the internet's not keeping up with the frequencies. But go ahead.
I can't remember what I was going to say, so please go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask if there's anything else that you wanted to tell us about ruins history, because I did also want to ask you about channeling different ascended masters and deities, and especially the mythological creatures, which I just think is so freaking cool. To impart anything else that you have about the ruins specifically.
We'll have to do a part 2 on the ruins because we haven't even gotten to the different 8, what we call 8s. Like there's Freya's 8, there's Heimdall's 8, or people refer to Heimdall as Hagal. There's also Tyr's 8. So we'll have to do a part 2 on that because the this is why I love them. They're so in depth and there's so much.
Oh, that's totally fine. Like, and if you want, yeah. Now that's up to you. Do you want to continue talking about the ruins? Okay, could you speak real quick on the web of Wyrd rune?
The web of Wyrd. So are we talking about word weaving, Kylie? Or are you talking about Odin's rune, which is the blank rune? Because I'm not.
Yeah, we'll see.
Familiar with that. Let me actually pull up my internet if my internet wants to behave.
Okay.
Give me a hot second.
But yes, we can definitely do a part 2 as well and get like deeper into. She said the one that's all of them together.
Yes, so that's word weaving, Kylie. So what that refers to is, so it based on the Norns. So it's not necessarily a specific rune. It talks about the principle and the fullness of essence that our words are spells and our words weave our fate, and that's dictated by the Norns. The Norns are the three beings, entities, whatever you like to call them, that weave and constantly thread our fate. So when we talk about word weaving, it is creating the realization that everything with our words weave our fate. And words can be, it starts with a thought, it starts with our words articulating from our tongue or loosening from our tongue, and then our words transition into action. So all of the runes together create word weaving. And as we weave words and speak words, that's what creates our fate, and our actions beget our fate, if that makes sense. So it's just that the ideology that our fate lives within us, and what we choose to do with our fate and using our words accordingly dictates our fate. But we are the masters of our fate, as are the Norns. But it's that parallel of recognizing your word. Again, like we all hear, words are spells. In Norse culture, Germanic culture, we take that a whole step forward in recognizing that our words create our fate and the fate lives within us. And that's a huge thing that has been coming up constantly, even more so with my guides and who I channel, where it talks about understanding the precipice of what we call being sovereign, or our own journey in this mortal experience, is you create your fate. Your fate lives within you, and you have to recognize that and honor that. And as we transcend that thought and really take that into our heart space, that our fate lives within us, we start seeing our world, our experiences in a different breath. And I think that is truly empowering, because when we understand that facet of our words or our fate lives within us, and we follow through with those actions, we begin to understand ourselves at such a deep, intricate level, in integrating with all facets, our shadows, our past selves, our concurrent selves, that is what it means to step back into your power. You are coming home to yourself because you understand yourself. And when you come home to yourself, you embrace everything. And that is the power that everyone deserves and needs and should have, with being able to take initiative of themselves.
I love that. A question. Do you think that neuro-linguistic programming, like the modality, which is more of like a psychology toolkit, do you think that is a derivative of runes in helping people understand on more of a human conceptual level of how our words weave our reality around us?
Yes. Because everything that we do is tied to intention, is it not? And when we are tying our intention and our perception into a physical form or into a tangible form, again, with words we'll use as a reference, or channeling through our art, channeling through our writing, channeling through what we choose to do in this realm and how we choose to perceive and act and react, that absolutely is creating that aspect of reality and transmogrifying everything into our existence. So absolutely 1,000,000% on that.
I love that word, transmogrify. Say it again, transmogrify.
Transmogrify? Mm-hmm.
Yes, transmogrify. Yes. I was like, ooh.
Ooh, word.
Yes. Another question for you. So you keep referring to the fates within Norse mythos, and I was wondering if there is a correlation between the fates in Greek mythology, or if those are separate beings, or if they're cousin beings, if that makes sense. If there's any overlap between them.
There will always be overlap. There is always concepts found within a myriad and a plethora of cultures that have the same ideology. There are just different perspectives and different interpretations. So the fates of Greek and the fates in Norse are very much the same. It's a concept. Now, remember too, it can be a little daunting to have to remember, is that a lot of our lore are the same figures, just with different names. But that also is debatable, because a lot of our mythology, our inscriptions, our texts, and the verbal recounts that have transcended throughout history also have been, in one way or another, have been altered because of the desire to not have humanity know its full scope of its existence, of its hero's journey, of its stories, because within our stories is our power. So there's absolutely a connection. And I think that there's different aspects to where within different cultures we have, even as we interpret different deities or different deities within pantheons as maybe being the same, I think there's also a difference in having their own individuality and their own presence. So I think that the Norns, the fate weavers in Norse, and then the Greek fate weavers, I think they are different, but their presence and their purpose is exactly the same as to what they do.
That totally makes sense. It makes sense. And speaking about mythologies and pantheons, I'm very curious to hear how you began channeling different mythological creatures, because that is not necessarily a realm that I have gotten into yet. I channel unicorns and fairies and dragons and things like that, but I feel like I'm about to have a whole window of opportunity to open up, and I just am very excited to hear about this and how you got into it, and if you have and not to play favorites, but if you have specific beings of that nature that you really like to work with closely?
I can't play favorites, but I do.
I know.
So I'm still, okay, get this. So I'm still actually, I started channeling only last year, but I've been channeling since I was younger and I had no idea. I thought I was just making up things in my head, but I was always having vivid conversations with myself and others and other creatures and stuff. It was kind of like a coping mechanism growing up. I was extremely bullied as a kid. I was bullied for my appearance. I wasn't healthy as I am now. So I think getting into this is understanding the lore of different cultures, because I've always loved mythology. That's been my jam, especially since like middle school. There's still a lot I need to learn, but I think understanding that and having different experiences. So my main guide, Adara, is a sprite. Please don't call her a fairy. She detests that because they're completely different.
We don't call sprites fairies.
Definitely don't.
Sprites are their own genealogy.
Yes.
Right.
Their own. I laugh about that all the time, because if she's prodding me, I'm like, what is that fairy? And I get in trouble. So, but that's just but I think through Adara is where I kind of began to understand, and my understanding of mythos throughout different lores and pantheons across the globe really opened that up. I've worked with griffins before. Griffins are amazing. I have a dragon. His name is Avarth. He's an Eastern dragon. I've worked with very odd creatures. I've communicated with basilisk, which is kind of like very odd. I've worked with, I have a whole list of creatures that I've really kind of wanted to contact, and I'm just kind of waiting for opportunities. I've done a lot with what we call wolvers. They're from Celtic lore. They're the way that they're portrayed and is not accurate. So it really is not necessarily a werewolf, but more anthropomorphic wolf that has the stature. It's an anthropomorphic wolf. Let's just be real. And learning about them, like the Wolverstane and like their role in those old Celtic societies, as like the old lore with the Wolverstane is the wolvers would literally sit on, there's a specific rock that they'd fish on called the Wolverstane. And what they would do is for less fortunate families in those villages, they'd leave fish on the windowsill to make sure that those families had food to eat. So that's been fun, and learning about wolvers and my connection to wolvers. I work with, it's so weird talking about what I work with, because I'm like, oh yeah, I do that, and that's weird, and I don't think anyone else has really communicated with them. So it's just kind of like normal, really bizarre.
It's normal for you.
Yeah, it's normal for me. I've done elementals. I've worked with, I said griffins. I've worked with very unusual creatures. I'm trying to think who else I've worked with. I'm trying to pull up my list right now because my brain is admittedly a little hazy right now. But I think it just really comes into understanding that the creatures within our lore have a basis of reality. And if you're looking for them and you understand, there's some with great, and it's all about discernment. Do they want to talk to me because they're good? We're in duality now. So you're kind of, there could be a little game of roulette here with imposters, or energetic presences or creatures coming through that perhaps are not what they seem. So I think discernment plays a big thing in there too. But I've just been trying to shatter my own perceptions of what's possible. So, I've done dragons. Like I said, I have a Varith. I've worked with leonine creatures, not necessarily like chimera, a little bit different, like more or less winged lions. And then I've worked with Kirin, which are super cool. They're kind of like the battle unicorns. So Kirins are really cool. They stem from more Asiatic, but they are, imagine a unicorn with more of sometimes they can have like a scythe-like horn, and they also have like dragon scaling and more of that leonine-like tail, cloven hooves. So I work with Kirins a lot and I enjoy them. I've worked with phoenixes. I've worked with like very archaic, just like birds of prey, avian. I don't even have a word for what they are, but it's just, understanding how to do it safely, discerning intentions, trusting your gatekeeper, trusting your guides, I think is like the main thing, because you got to stay savvy in these spiritual, the wilds of the spiritual realm, because there are imposters, there are energetic presences that will take you for a ride. And if you're not understanding the full context of like, okay, this is theoretically, now it's not to paint any sort of creature in a solo perspective, but it's like, all right, how do I feel about this? Am I getting the correct information? Let me check with my guides. Let me pull out my pendulum. Let me kind of see, let me make sure that who I'm working with is good if we're on the same side. So I think that really having that checks and balances is essential, because it's super fun. I mean, you talk about like the mythologies of selkies and mermaids and Loch Ness monster-like creature, because we have them here in the United States. You can go into like more Sasquatch. I haven't tapped in yet, but that's on my list. That's at the top right now, because with being in Texas, we have Sasquatch around here, and I'm just like, oh. Whether or not it happens, we'll see. But like, it's just, you get to familiarize yourself with, and I have a whole list of different states and what mythological creatures exist, or what the records and accounts are. And it's just kind of going into that, like understanding, all right, my intention is to contact an Ozark howler, or my intention is to connect with, what's the one? There's the Bear King of Marble Falls is here in Texas. And I'm like, that's on my list too. Want to contact them and see what happens, but safely. I think it's just understanding your lore, having intuition and having that discernment, working intuitively with your guides. Again, checks and balances, doing your protection before, making sure that you are set, ready to go, that you are grounded, that you are, using your surrounding yourself with golden light from source, whatever you need to do, like from start to finish. It's ensuring that you are covering all of your bases. Like, you're pairing your intentions with the right crystals. I have my organite that I use and surround stuff, or, it's everything you have to choose and do. Let me reword that. When you have your intentions, you have to look at every single opportunity to just make sure that you're working safe. Because we're not infallible. No one's infallible. But it's making sure that you are covering your bases and choosing what to implement in your work with the intentions that you're looking for. So like, I have what's called starlight when I work with starlights coming in. But like, I've had practitioner friends that will use starlight for working with the Fae. Or I have I have Master Shamanite, which is a very elusive stone, but I use that for working with very archaic old earth energies. Same with my Ishua stone, which is some of the oldest material on earth. Same with my Numite. So I'm working big earth energies or looking for those. Like, I want to use those stones. So it's crafting your intentions and matchmaking for what you're looking to do is the best way I can equate it with how I work. It's like, set your intentions, have your accessories, create your protection, and then you can see what, you can go forward from there. But I just think there's a lot of practitioners that work with different elementals and energies and creatures. I just kind of choose the ones that no one really, the more mythos here in the States, but also like across the realm. Like I work with Fenrir, and that has always been painted as Fenrir's unhinged. He's a giant son of Loki. He's a wolf that will bring out Ragnarok. It's like, but those are the stories that we've been told. He's a very intense energy. He's very heavy. Mm-hmm. But Fenrir and I, in our relationship, and I channel him, is very unique. I've worked with wolves and wolf dogs for 13 years, and I understand them. And perhaps it's as we learn and work with certain creatures, I think we start undoing the mythos that have been perpetuated or that have been misaligned, that is not factual. So like working with the Fae, everyone's interpretation of, the Fae, the Unseelies are evil. And there's another channeler named Rachel Chamness, and Rachel will tell you absolutely not. That energy's gone. This whole mythos and this whole realization of perpetually calling the Fae evil or bad. Yeah, there's some in duality that are mischievous, but it's just, we have a wonderful opportunity of spinning our own notion of what we understand and reinventing it and being able to actually expound on the truth. You know, there's so much lore, but who's to say that it's accurate? And the way that I work with and working with Fenrir, I've found that to be true, because again, the premise of he's wild, he's savage, he took Tyr's arm, he's going to create Ragnarok, kill Odin and all this. It's like, but can we break it down to a different level, to where there was already a perpetuated notion of fear amongst Fenrir that the gods had? And would that, and it's like, I guess my perspective of is that we have to flip the narrative sometimes and look at it at a different perspective. And what I've learned from Fenrir, especially having so much experience in working with wolves and wolf dogs and wild canids, is that when you begin to see and interpret something and allow yourself to change the narrative and be brave enough to challenge that own old school narrative, I think we really take something away and we learn more about the actuality of things. And sometimes we have to be able to step away from what we initially understand and be able to just listen and hear stories. You know, hearing their stories, hearing Fenrir's perspective, that was crazy for me. Because, you know, I've worked with wolves and wolf dogs that want to tear people apart because of how they've been conditioned. They've been conditioned with fear. They've been conditioned with having to feel as if they have to fight for their resources or to be very protective of what is theirs. It is no different. And when we look at that perspective and we understand that and really harness the perception of duality and breaking down the stereotypes, I think that that's where we start to garner more understanding. And we start to rewrite what we consider lore, or as, you know, mythos gospel, quote unquote, and really tune into reinventing or revitalizing our own knowledge, because knowledge is not stagnant. It's always going to be changing. It's always going to be evolving. And it's not up to one person. It's up to all of us if we so choose. But that's what makes working in magic so fascinating, is because we learn when we grow and we evolve and our understanding evolves. And all collectively, as we work with this, really broadens the way that we work to a heightened degree. And that's what I love about this. And from Fenrir, I've garnered so much. He may come through too, but you know, you work with what you'd like to, but sometimes there's opportunities to remember channeling safely, doing your checks and balances, your discernment, because there are tricksters and imposters that will try and take you for a ride. So being savvy in these spiritually wild streets. But I think that's kind of, it opens up the realm of possibilities of truly seeing and falling in love with the magic that we have here.
Oh, that was so beautifully said. Thank you. There's such a wisdom and insight there. And as you're talking about using, I have two questions for you. So the first one is about using your intuition discernment, but also working with gatekeepers, which when I first got into channeling, Archangel Michael and Kali were my gatekeepers. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about those concepts and how that works, because I do think that is something that can make you feel a lot more safer traversing through these different frequencies and dimensions. If you have people that are more, a little bit more grounded to your experience. Obviously, some of the creatures that you work with are a little outside of people's like realm of knowledge, but spirit guides like Joan of Arc, or, you know, different beings that are a little bit more known, make you feel a little more safe and grounded.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with Artemis, and I also have Moo, who is, strange enough, he was with me. He was actually a wolf dog that I raised and trained here in this life. We've always incarnated. That's been our thing. Same with Adara. And Moo's one of my gatekeepers as well. And so is Avarith, who's my dragon.
Nice.
There are different meditations out there. YouTube's a phenomenal source of finding meditations, or specifically guided meditations for gatekeepers, for meeting your spirit guides or your spirit team, your soul family, whatever you want to call them. So I think setting the intention and understanding and creating that relationship is essential. A lot of the times folks will be a little bit disheartened because they're like, well, I asked for my spirit guide or my gatekeeper to show themselves. I'm like, but are you doing the work? They're like, but I asked them. It's like, no. It's more than just setting the intention and asking. It really is doing the work, going into meditation. And meditation doesn't mean you just have to sit down and be quiet. That can, for me, like that's being outside, outside of my house, outside four walls, being with the woofers, taking a nature walk, doing something that allows my mind to transcend and be free from, that's kind of my flow state, is going in and being in nature. And that's how I connect. So when it comes to gatekeepers, there's meditations to help you create that connection, get familiar with them, start working with them, building that rapport, because it really is a friendship. I view the work that we do with our gatekeepers and our guides as a friendship. It's not stagnant, it's one-sided, it's a collaborative teamwork. And the more that we view that as collaborative teamwork and building that rapport and that friendship, I think that that's where it transcends deeper and our work is allowed to really penetrate down into the breadth of what we had not anticipated, or really reaching into the fullness of its full possibilities. So gatekeepers are great because we can double check with them. We can always set our intentions to allow specific things in. If something's iffy, they're, like Artemis checks in with me and she's like, there's a giant wolf creature here. And I'm like, okay, give me a little bit more information. And let's kind of go from there and see what happens. Or, like when I've met different creatures that I haven't been familiar with, she'll be like, there is a strange looking lion creature that wants to talk to you. And I'm like, a little bit more like, let's feel this out a little bit before I say yes. So it really gives you that peace of mind of having that opportunity of just, it's again, checks and balances. So having that, especially in any sort of channeling, is a great way to just have that assurance, but at least to have just have someone having your back. That's really what it comes down to. Your guides have your back too, but your gatekeepers also can help kind of usher in or kind of rebuke the unwanted from making it, from coming forward into your circle, so to speak.
Absolutely agree. When I first got into channeling, I was a little bit nervous about that because I used to be an open channel as a child and had a lot of perception into different frequencies and dimensions and did not have necessarily gatekeepers and things of that nature. So I shut off my abilities for, most of my life. And so it was a little nerve-wracking getting into those things. But at the same time, I felt like I couldn't hear my guides, couldn't hear my higher self very clearly. And obviously that's because I needed to do more work, like you're saying, right? But I said, you know what? If I can't hear them, I'm just going to pick whom I want to be on my spirit team, or ask them, right? Ask them, hey, will you be on my spirit team? And so I asked Archangel Michael and Kali, but I didn't straight go into channeling and help or working with them as gatekeepers. I spent a lot of time and energy in getting to know them and facilitating that friendship so that we had that deeper resonance with one another. And at the same time, realizing too, like, these guides are not above you. They're trying to help you wake up to who you actually are and what you're capable of. And so I was actually helping Archangel Michael and Kali with things that they needed assistance with in their existences, right? It's like you're saying, like a two-way street. And in doing that, it really helped solidify my trust and faith in them to keep me protected while I was going through these different ethereal realms. And there were many times in the beginning where I did need them. I did not like the energies that I was experiencing or the beings that I was meeting. And so they would help me, navigate through those. But that was after kind of cultivating those relationships with them. So I think that what you're saying of, hey, let's spend some time and energy, just like you would a friend here in the 3D human plane.
Yeah. And I want to point out one thing too, because when we talk about deities from different pantheons, I always sometimes hear, especially from folks of especially when they're coming new into this and looking to work with different energetic presences from pantheons of all calibers, is that, and I love how you put it, we are this, sure, they could be at different frequencies or different densities or, levels of dimensions. But I've always loved how the Norse put it, where it's not about worship, it's about honor. Honor who you work with. honor their presence. I do offerings before, like I do any big, channeling or work, or I'm really delving into different opportunities for myself to dive deeper. Like I'll do offerings. Like I will actually I'll do the ceremonial offering. I'll offer food. So that's where I don't even eat any of the food. The intention is it goes to those who I'm working with, and I'll leave it out for a few hours and then fully dispose of it. That could be burning it, burying it, or giving it to nature. But it really comes down to, it's not about worship. It's about working collaboratively and honoring the process, honoring the energy, honoring an intention of this is X, Y, and Z, what I'm looking to do through the highest light and for the highest good. I ask for this protection as I do this work and as we do this work together in pursuit of X, Y, Z. Enter however you'd like. You can enter your intentions there, but it really is, as we truly begin to embrace those that we work with. I've always taken the initiative to do offerings as a show of thanks, as a show of honor, but not worship. So, and I think that's an important clarification, because the old gods do not want you to worship them. Do not bend a knee. Honor them. We are on the same level, and they are open and want to help you. But it's not to take the initiative of interpretation of worship. It is, again, allowing ourselves to work with each other's energies to perform a task or to pursue knowledge in the greatest of capacities and opportunities. But it is not to put one higher above the other.
I think that's great. I akin it to working with a mentor. Of you're coming to them because they have so much wisdom and knowledge to impart, and they've invested so much time and energy, especially these deities that have been around forever. Okay. And they've seen a lot of history, right? And so just having reverence of understanding that, again, like you said, it's not worship, it's just that honor system and respect, and spending time and energy with them and listening to what they have to say, and then imparting that into your life and seeing how it really does benefit you. I have one other question for you. So when I am working with people and they're asking about channeling and they say, I want to tap into all these different frequencies and dimensions and all these different beings, I always say, get your hands on as much magical books, movies, television shows, just anything that really expands your magic container and what you are having in your present experience. And I'm wondering if one of the reasons that you have been able to access these different creatures and deities and ascended masters and things is because you have so much interest in mythology and all of these things that are kind of just outside of the human experience. And so it naturally opens up your channel lines.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially diving into the different, the threads that tie together cultures, the threads that tie together the human experience in the lore and the mythos, and how that has transcended our understanding and opened ourselves up to different narratives and interpretations of life. I think that's what's really created the opportunity, taking the initiative to read and understand the texts that are available. Media sometimes can be hit or miss. There is some, when it comes to quote unquote fantasy, there's some truth in there, but also there's scare tactics or tactics to make you feel as if, oh, well, that was cool, but there's no way it's real because this is just a TV show, or this is just a. So I think it's just, for me, it's always been text-based. So like a lot of fantasy books, I grew up on those. Like I grew up on Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern. I grew up on David Clement Davies' The Sight series. That's been my root, has always been fantasy. That's kind of where my headspace has always been. And I think with learning about different pantheons and different heroic figures or creatures that are entwined with all of that, I think has given me the curiosity and opened that opportunity through my guides. I mean, through Adara, through Mu, through Avarith, and the many that I have no idea I still have yet to meet or haven't moved forward with, I think it's just allowing ourselves to, it's based on intention. I've always wanted to work. I've spent 13 years working with a myriad of different animals, from different apex predators to birds of prey. And I think it's just that inherent mean that I have a knack with connecting with animals in the physical realm. And apparently that is no stranger to working in the realm of the unseen. It's just that it's not like I'm a beast keeper or anything. I kind of think to myself as, I like to laugh and say I'm some sort of mythical beast lore keeper, but I still have a lot to learn. There's still creatures I have not met. There's still things that I need to expand, there's three things I talk about. Our understanding can be redacted, refurbished, and revitalized. You have to be willing to have all three. You can't keep yourself stagnant, and you can't keep yourself into one linear perspective. You have to, especially in the work I do, I get reamed all the time, and I just laugh because it's like, this information is correct that I had a previous perception on. So I'm gonna redact that. I'm gonna refurbish it, and then I'm gonna revitalize it or breathe life back into it with what I know now, And I think that's played into how I've worked in the physical with animals, and now that same initiative and understanding has melded into how I work with creatures that are not to the visible eye, that have not wanted to come back, that are waiting for the earth realm to shift into 4D, 5D, and beyond, because the way that earth has worked with a lot of these mythological creatures or unseen energetic presences is earth has not been kind. Earth has had a long-standing history of, with a lot of magical creatures, hunting, extorting them for their own magic within their bones, creating a discord or a disharmony to which it has made it a less than ideal realm to be in. And as Earth as we grasp back into our magic and the foundation principles of understanding the entirety of our narrative of magic here and the creatures that are here, I think that will be the breath, the revitalization that they are waiting for to really come back into the fullness of being here. So like they're still here, but there's still a disconnect, and it's waiting. It hinges on us to really be able to foster that foundation, that trust, as well as that opportunity to work more intimately. So it really is kind of not necessarily a wait and see, but waiting for the conditions and for human consciousness to catch up, as well as changing a narrative that perhaps has been less than ideal with previous run-ins or interactions that these different myriadic creatures have had with humanity.
I like what you said earlier about it can be kind of hit or miss with different type of media with these creatures. Especially we can see that kind of with alien propaganda right now. Like it has just been made like everything different from us is separate or evil or going to hurt us and all these different things. And magical creatures are in the same aspect, even as the alien propaganda, right? So you have to use your intuition and discernment when you're watching and listening to these things. And if something is not of the light, we cannot, just like with fairies, like you were saying, we cannot say that all types of beings are evil, okay, or that they're trying to hurt us or lead us astray. Like it's just like the individual experience. People can be of high vibrations or lower vibrations, right? I was going to ask, when I'm speaking to people about channeling and accessing these different things and learning through different forms of media, whether it's books or movies or TV shows, that there is an underlying truth in most of these things, because everything is coming from the Akasha field. So what people are perceiving as fantasy is probably just different portals of information from places and spaces that they have not seen with their human physical eyes. And it's been distorted through human lenses, right? But it's coming from somewhere. Like all of these, what we call ideas, but they're actually rooted in truth somewhere.
And let's look at this way. So like what I thought when I was younger Cael, that was in high school, that was asked to start writing like a paper, like to write a story for my English class. Didn't realize, so 400 pages later, didn't realize it was a concurrent life. So I think that what we interpret and what we receive and what we experience can also be from past lives, from downloads of information, from concurrent lives, you could absolutely be channeling and not know what you're doing, but it is coming through your work, through your art, through your music. There's endless possibilities. And I think for me, it's frustrating because when people say, I can't channel, or they limit themselves, I think there's such a preconceived notion of what channeling is that we automatically rule it out, that we're not doing it when we are. It's like channeling is never going to look the same. Sure. I mean, if we want to look at it in a context, like, I think there are older ways of approaches of channeling that have been revamped because our direct connection to source is different than it was back then. We humans have evolved as we've become more adept in understanding this realm, and through different generations, our inherent connectedness has always been evolving through each generation, if that makes sense. So it's like now we're at 2024, and I'm seeing, and it's so cool that channeling is not always going to look the same. A lot of people go into full trance with their eyes closed, and then I don't work that way. And that's okay. It doesn't have to look the same, and it can be different, but our own unique experiences don't have to be cataloged as having to look exactly the same as everyone else's. So when people talk about they want to channel, I feel like in my own work, I've reminded people, it's like, okay, well, I hear you explaining that you're writing. You have to realize that your writing can also be automatic writing, or the music you're creating could be divinely inspired, or the painting that you're working on is also a way of channeling. Channeling doesn't have to mean going into trance. You could be receiving information and not even knowing it. And that's the beauty of it. And I want folks to really embrace that, to not create, it's just getting rid of these self-limiting beliefs, I think, is my whole tangent on this. It's understanding that we don't all work the same, but trust your process and trust in you, trust in your guides, and you will be pleasantly surprised in understanding and seeing that those little thoughts that we have, or those tangents, or the rabbit holes that we go through, it all starts with somewhere, and it comes through channeling, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, I totally agree. I tell people channeling is not just channeling beings. Like manifesting is channeling. You stepping into a new identity or a new higher self form, that's channeling. You bringing in more peace and joy and happiness and bliss and feelings of safety and security, those are all frequencies. We are all channeling at all times, whether you are consciously aware or unconsciously aware of it. And what you choose to channel can be, whatever you want to do, but we're all natural channelers. It's all frequencies flowing through us. We're all frequency, right? We look like humans, but we're just frequency at the end of the day.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I guess, Sage, my whole thing is I'm tired of the divide. It's like, embrace people, support them in their journeys, support them in understanding that we all have incredible inherent gifts, and let's support that. Let's help people discover just how phenomenal they are. Let's be able to help them with their gifts. That's how we raise the vibration that we talk about. Through love, support, having people feel seen, validated, and heard. That is how we help transcend through this this human experience, and also get to where we want to see this realm develop and grow and transmogrify into the state that it's supposed to be in. So it's let's just help people. Let's just support people, support them in their journey, whatever that looks like. And when we do that, it's inspiring people to not be afraid of their talents, their inherent abilities, and their light. And that then allows others to have the bravery to see and to feel inspired to really delve into themselves, expound on their own essence of being, and come into the realization of their own potential and power. This is the whole purpose.
Absolutely. Speaking of supporting people, I would love for you to tell everybody what kind of sessions that you offer and how people can work with you if they want to learn more about themselves and their ascension journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do I do full rune sessions, or like it could be it says an hour on the website. It usually ends up like an hour and a half or two, because I don't really put a timestamp. If any of my guides come through, or whoever comes through and needs to relay a message, then it's just like, we need to make sure we see this through. So there's 30-minute rune sessions, there's an hour session, there's soul path, where it really is figuring out where you want to go. It's using the runes. Sometimes I'll pull out the oracle cards, and it's tapping into who I work with, or whoever wants to come through to offer guidance, and really helping you understand and almost recalibrate yourself to your own potential and figure out your own hero's journey. Then there's also, if you just want to talk to one of my guides and get some insight, that's cool too. That's really the basis of it. It's like, my whole purpose, I feel, is helping people tap into their potential, helping them understand their hero's journey, and helping them transcend into their own essence, so they can be cosmic badasses, or, be able to allow themselves to go through this and have the support that they need. I mean, because we all need support. So that's kind of like the main things that I kind of really just kind of focus on.
Beautiful, beautiful. Where can everybody find you to book sessions, to find you on social medias? And I would love for everybody to for you to tell everybody about your podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it's wildheartrunes.weebly.com, I think it is. So I have that. That's my website. That's kind of the main one I have. And then, of course, on Facebook, I have Feral Lore. It's really like maybe about 2 weeks old. We're getting some traction back. So it's pretty new. And that's the podcast. That's just posting. My whole premise, again, is just like uplifting, having some daily laughs, and having videos of just like I'll be out with the high content wolf dogs and just talking about whatever pops in the head, doing vibe checks with people because the energy's been crazy. And just uplifting content to kind of, remind people that the three things are: you are loved, you matter, and that I'm so grateful that they're here. It's like giving people some daily dose of love and reminding them, because that's how we start changes. And then, that's the whole premise of Feral Lore. I have an Instagram, but I have to convert it from my personal one that I used for so long. It just has pictures of the animals I've worked with and stuff. So, but that also is under Feral Lore, but that's kind of, I need to revamp that. That's kind of it. I have not expanded a lot on social media. I've just primarily worked through Facebook. But hopefully that will change for the better. I've just been distracted.
Can you tell me your website one more time, because they want me to put it in the comments down here, and I will also share Cael's information on all of the social medias where this will be reposted as well for replay.
Yes, let me.
Can you see the comments on your side, Cael? Okay.
Yes, beautiful. I can.
Beautiful. Okay. Perfect. And then y'all go and follow Cael on Feral Lore as well on Facebook, so you can check out their amazing podcast.
Yeah, perfect. It's we're baby stages. I've done a lot of videos first, like creating actual, like doing just fun videos. Like really, it takes hours. It takes so long, but like just uplifting messages to help. And I'll still keep doing that. And then the podcast now is just kind of getting underway. So more fun stuff to come through. I have a lot of cool guests, and I'm stoked to be bringing on. But it's uncharted waters, and it's super exciting to see how it evolves. So
amazing. Well, y'all make sure and go book a session with Cael to get on your aligned soul path here and figure out what you came here to do for this incarnation and your next steps. And follow them on social media. And we appreciate you coming here today to listen to our chat if you're in here live or if you're watching in the future on the replay. And Cael, I want to thank you so much. It was such an abundant blessing and honor to have you here with all of your knowledge and wisdom and bringing all of this information about the ruins, but also mythological creatures and channeling and all that to the forefront of the collective. And so I appreciate you for that.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun speaking with you. It's like I never anticipate the, how do I want to put this? It's just always, it's a joy. It's just like, it's so much fun. I mean, if our internet's going out, that's a good high vibe thing, but I appreciate the work that you do. Yeah, I appreciate the work that you do, and with helping just a breadth of folks being able to recognize their own inherent essence and helping them however you can. So thank you profusely for the work that you do, because it's seen, it's validated and heard, and your work is astronomically, it's changing everything that we know, and it's helping people really understand themselves. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you so much for reflecting that back to me. That was so sweet and so kind. And I am receiving that into my heart space. Thank you. You're so sweet. Okay, everybody. And thank you all as well for all that you are doing out in the collective too. Like we are all here putting in that work in these spiritual streets, okay, externally and internally. So we are honored to be a part of y'all's journey as well. And thank you. Yes, bye everybody. Thank you. And bye, Cael. Bye.